Madam Chairperson, Madam Secretary General, Excellencies, at the outset I would like to congratulate the outgoing German chairmanship with the results achieved and solid foundation laid for follow-up actions. I wish all the success to the incoming Hungarian chairmanship and express our readiness to work closely with the upcoming chairmanship during its important endeavors. It is particularly welcoming that Hungary identified human rights and the environment as one of the priorities of the chairmanship, the topic highlighted by Georgia during our presidency. We commend Secretary General for elaborating strategic framework of the Council of Europe, a comprehensive document representing key strategic priorities of the organization and express readiness to contribute to the process of translating these vital priorities into concrete results. Protection of the Council of Europe's core values, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law is of high priority for Georgia. We fully share the position of the Secretary General that those three pillars of our work are in fact inseparable. If one weakens, so do the others. Georgia remains committed to further consolidating democracy, ensure human rights protection, rule of law, and good governance, as well as strengthening transparency and judicial independence. Georgia's cooperation with the Council of Europe bodies and its monitoring mechanism is extremely valuable to promote international human rights standards on the ground. We welcome the close cooperation between the Council of Europe and the European Union and support the increased scope of cooperation with the EU and its successor to the ECHR. Dear colleagues, while Georgia spares no efforts to further advance higher standards of human rights protection on the government-controlled territory and effectively responding to the pandemic, the human rights situation in the occupied Abkhazia and Tkhinvali regions of Georgia has further aggravated. We continue witnessing Russia's grave violation of the basic human rights, killings, illegal detentions, installation of reservoir fences and other artificial obstacles along the occupation line and adjacent areas, as well as unprecedentedly lengthy closure of the so-called crossing points and restrictions of freedom of movement. Just recently, 4 residents of the Russian-occupied Abkhazia region have drowned while trying to cross the Inguri River to reach the government-controlled territory. Secretary General highlighted in the recent consolidated report the cases of illegal detentions and kidnappings of Georgians for the so-called illegal border crossing in the both Russian-occupied regions. Let me bring to your attention the case of Zaza Gacheladze, whose illegal detention was recently prolonged by the unlawful decision of the Russian-occupied regime in Tkhinvali for more than 12 years. International community's strong and vocal stance is important in order to achieve his immediate release. Dear colleagues, Georgia unwaveringly pursues the policy of peaceful resolution of the conflict, primarily through the Geneva international discussions. At the same time, in cooperation with the international partners, we have been steadily intensifying efforts for reconciliation among the war-torn communities and implementing the peace initiative, a step to better future. The solution of the conflict lays in Russia's compliance with the EU-mediated 12 August 2008 ceasefire agreement. Let me reiterate the call on Russia to cease human rights violations and allow international human rights and security arrangements in both Georgian regions, withdraw its illegally stationed military forces from Georgia, and comply with the fundamental norms and principles of international law. Dear colleagues, landmark judgment of the European Court of Human Rights in the case of Georgia versus Russia attested Russia's occupation and effective control over the 2 integral regions of Georgia and ruled Russia's responsibility for the human rights violation during the August 2008 war and in the period of the occupation on a number of articles of the ECHR. This judgment represents a milestone to protect human rights of the conflict-affected population and should be used by the international community to ensure that Russia implements its international commitments. Only through the international community's pressure on Russia, the occupation can be reversed and the suffering of the conflict-affected population can be ended. In this context, the Secretary General's regular consolidated reports and the Council of Ministers' annual decisions on this very issue remain of utmost importance. More specifically, last decision of 12th of May provides details of the grave human rights violations in the occupied territories of Georgia. Let me use this opportunity to thank the member states for the support. Despite all challenges, Georgia's democratic path remains unshaken. In the process of consolidating its democratic development, Georgia has immensely benefited from close cooperation with the Council of Europe, in particular in the framework of the Action Plan for Georgia. We have established an exemplary model of cooperation with the Tbilisi office of the Council of Europe, with which Georgia enjoys very fruitful cooperation. In conclusion, I would like to congratulate once more Germany with the successful chairmanship and to wish the incoming Hungarian chairmanship all the success in this endeavor.